All right. Wow. Thanks so much for participating in the question because it gives me an idea of where all of you are when it comes to budget. And I heard a couple of people say it creates angst. And I think that's true for a lot of people when they start to think about budgeting, like, ugh. And the things that create angst for us, we avoid, right? And so I'm hoping that for those of you who feel anxious when it comes to the whole idea of budgeting, I'm hoping that after today, that maybe some of that angst will be relieved and you'll be a little bit more comfortable with at least attempting a budget, and just understand that budgeting is a process and that you will refine it as you continue, but taking the first step is super important. So let me see if I'm able to share my screen. Let's see. No. Can somebody help me out with that one?
Yep, hang on.
Thank you.
You're welcome. All right, you should be co-host now.
All righty, let's see. Yep, it works. Thank you so much. All right, let me know you can see it.
Yep.
Yes? Thumbs up? Great. All right, so budget. We're gonna have some fun with this, I hope. So my next question, I already asked one, so here's my next question. How many of you would like to save and invest more than you currently are? Anybody besides me that would like to do that? Yeah, I think that gets, that generally gets all hands, regardless of where you feel like you are financially. Most people say they would like to do a little bit better, right? So I'm asking a lot of questions today. So why don't you do it? Feel free to answer. I mean, hopefully this will be a little bit interactive. So why don't we do it?
Not sure where to start. Or don't have the money.
Knowledge.
Yeah.
I mean, you can be as honest as you want to be. Any thoughts about why you don't do it? We all want to do it.
I would say for me, my I'm always scared that it's like money I'm going to need. Like I'm like, oh, I can't. What if I need the cash? Like instead of paying down a credit card bill, whatever. I'm just like, what if I need that cash? Which is irrational fear in my mind.
Okay, but if it's in your mind, it holds you back. So
yes,
it's valid.
Definitely.
Yeah, absolutely. Anybody else might need it for something else? Get it?
Yeah,
get that?
Not enough money, Erica.
Not enough money. Okay. Michael looks like he's raising his hand for that.
Nobody's buying travel.
Got it. I get that. All right. So, maybe I'm going to need this for something else, don't have enough money. So let's move forward. And I just want to share with you that budget is not a 4-letter word. I mean, I know that, it is the B word. Well, a B word, not the B word, but it's definitely not a 4-letter word. Now, how to create a budget and a workable budget. And that's really what I want you to hopefully come out of this. And there are many ways to do it, but let's start with this. Now, what most people think about when I say budget, and you guys named some of these things, is, we look at all these things. Yeah, can't call Michael anymore because, gee, not going to be able to travel. Yeah, those dinners that we used to have out with friends, shish, if I'm on a budget, like I'm not going to be able to do any of that fun stuff, right? How about those gadgets we like to go and buy? Well, shush, if I'm on a budget, surely I'm not going to be able to do that, right? So the results of not having a budget. So here are some of them. It's kind of like, money down the drain, throwing money in the trash can, burning money. Nobody would do that. Money in the toilet. But realistically, that's what is happening for us when we don't operate from a budget. I see Ralph nodding because I know he works with these kinds of things with his clients too, I'm sure. So really, what is a budget? Simply, it is a spending plan. A budget gives you the ability to tell your money what it's going to do instead of just kind of winging it. Well, there's money in the account, I guess I'll spend it, right? It makes sure that you actually take care of the big things first. And somebody said that today. Oh, it was Carla. Carla talked about the way she and her husband handle it. They take care of the most important things first. And then if there's anything left over, that's when they do the things that they want, right? If you can imagine, and I'm sure you've seen these types of things before, a big jar, right? And if you have rocks and smaller rocks and then pebbles and then sand, if you put all the sand in the jar first, you're not going to fit all the other stuff in. But if you actually put the big rocks in first, the most important things in first, then you sprinkle it in with the next layer of important things, those smaller rocks, and then the pebbles go in, and then the sand, amazingly, you will find that you have, in many cases, enough money to really do the things that are most important if you handle it in that order. So I want to give you first a few reasons why to have a budget. So if we look at that, number one, it ensures that your spending matches your priorities. If I were to ask you all to write down what the most important things are for you when it comes to your money, I would probably hear things like retirement savings. I would hear things like funding kids' college education. Maybe tithing is an important thing for you. I would hear all those big rock things, right? If you really were honest about it and you took time to think about what the most important priorities were for you, whether it's in your business or in your household, you could come up with a list of the things that are most important. And if then we took a look at your spending habits over the last year, in most cases, they don't line up, right? And that is what creates, I think, a lot of the angst, a lot of the disconnect, a lot of the stress that we feel when we're looking at our money. What I find is that when people have that list of things that are priorities and most important, and when we then look at how they've spent their money, when those things align, people feel a whole lot less stress about their money. Because if something doesn't get done, because there isn't enough to do everything you need and want, you know that the important things got taken care of, and we feel a whole lot less stressed when those big things, the most important things, the things we identify as priorities are actually taken care of. So if you can start from the perspective of really sitting down and thinking about what is most important when it comes to my money. You know, obviously we all have to live, right? We have to take care of the basics. We got to have shelter. We've got to have food, all of those basic things. Those are a given. But what I'm talking about beyond those basic necessities is what do we do with what's left? Does that kind of make sense? Now, I'm not talking about wants. I'm talking about pure needs and living necessities. So here's some more. Helps you save for the important things. It keeps your eyes on the prize. We've talked about this many times when it comes to our business goals and our business objectives, and how many of us have whiteboards where we write down, or we have vision boards, things like that, where we write down the things that are most important for us. Well, having a budget forces us to look at our financial priorities on a regular basis, just the same way that we look at our vision on a regular basis. So it keeps that in the front of your mind. It ensures that you don't spend money you don't have, right? It leads to a happy retirement. It helps you prepare for emergencies. Now, Becca, you mentioned that, you know, like, hey, I'm a little concerned about maybe putting more money toward the debt because what if I need that? Well, here's the thing. If you're working from a plan, and I don't mean a plan that's in your head, I mean one that's actually written down somewhere. If you're working from a plan, and if that's a concern for you, guess what? That's going to already be built into your plan so that you actually have an emergency fund, so you don't have to be stressed about all those things that may come up. You've actually handled them in your plan, and you cannot worry about that, not focus on that. It sheds light on bad spending habits. So I can remember years ago when my husband and I really started to get a handle on our spending. We decided that we would each, and this was painful, I will tell you, this was very painful, each keep a notebook. And I mean, we committed to writing down everything that we spent. And I mean, down to a stick of gum, right? So that we could really get a handle. Now, this tells you how long ago, because there are apps that do that for you now. But this was before there were really apps that would do that. And we did it for 3 months. And oh my gosh, did we make some discoveries about where our money was going. And, it was really eye-opening, because you have no idea how much money is filtering through your fingertips, 75 cents at a time, a few dollars at a time. And it doesn't really seem like a big deal in the moment. But when you carry that out over 20 or 30 years, those kinds of spending habits, and then you factor in a little interest, we're going to do a little exercise a little bit later that will really show you what those things are costing you. And then it gives you peace of mind and helps you sleep at night. I promise you, it's much better than counting sheep. So a lot of times people think that budgets are there to restrict you. And I heard quite a bit of that, like, oh my gosh, I think Ellie mentioned it. And so did Amy. I don't really want to be scrutinized about my Starbucks spending and things like that, right? So that's not really what a budget is about. So remember when I said your priorities, not my priorities, but yours. So what does this suitcase of makeup have to do with budgeting? I'm going to tell you. Okay, so I have a friend. She's a lot younger than me. We're both Hokies, and at least once a year, at least we used to, travel down to Virginia Tech for a game. And we alternate who drives, that kind of thing. So one weekend, she shows up at my house to pick me up. This was, I think, the first time this was the first time we went together, right? I know this about her now. So she shows up to pick me up, and I roll my little suitcase. It's about the size of that pink one. I roll my little suitcase out. We're going for 2 days. This is Friday. We'll be back on Sunday. So I roll my suitcase out. I say, pop the trunk. And she goes, oh, no, just put it in the back seat. I was like, can put it in the trunk? She said, no, my makeup's back there. I was like, what? My girl has a suitcase, and it's bigger than this one in the picture. She has a suitcase for makeup. So fast forward a few years later, like she becomes a client of mine, and we really needed to get a handle on her money. Okay. And so I asked her to go through that same exercise that I just shared with you, list your priorities. And she was actually embarrassed to write down that makeup was really important to her. Okay. So I was like, look, this is not about me judging you over what's important to you. I mean, we are not good at not doing anything that we enjoy, because if your budget does not reflect some of the things that you actually want, right? How long are you going to really stick with that? I mean, if I said, Ellie, if you love Starbucks, Ellie, you can never, ever, ever, ever go to Starbucks again. How long are you going to stick with that budget if that's really something you enjoy? Yeah, about as long as I stuck with P90X, right? It's not going to stick long. So anyway, we finally got to the point where she was willing to admit that makeup was really that important. So guess what it is for her? Now, this has been years ago. It's a line item in her budget. You see, she used to go to Sephora and spend money and feel guilty about it. Like it stressed her out, because she knew that she had other things that she should be doing, but she wasn't. And every time she went to Sephora, like, she loved the makeup, but then she felt guilty about it. So it was, she's up and down, up and down. And so I was like, look, if makeup is important to you and it's on the top of that list, then maybe something that's, further to the bottom of that list gets not done, so that makeup can be a line item in your budget and you can go to Sephora and not feel guilty about it. Done. So she now has, her amount that she allots for that. She goes, she spends it, she's happy, she doesn't feel guilty, and it's a big rock for her. Wouldn't be for me. I don't know about you, but it wouldn't be for me. So I know for me, one of the discoveries I made, my husband and me both, when we were going through our strict budget exercise, was Starbucks. Starbucks for me was really an addiction. I was going to Starbucks every single day. Now I just drink coffee, so it's not like $6, but it was still like $3. When we added up what we were spending for coffee, it almost made me ill. And so I wanted to make that change. So, again, it's up to you what's important to you. The budget just kind of keeps you on track. Whoops. One of my favorite motivational speakers, he says this: successful people do what unsuccessful people are not willing to do. So don't wish it was easier, because budgeting, I'm not going to tell you it's easier. Just wish you were better and get a little better at it every single day. So how do I get started? First of all, we talked about this a few times. Identify what your priorities are. So write those down. Get a clear picture of where you want to go. So set some goals, some financial goals. So if you don't feel like you're on track for retirement, or maybe you haven't fully funded your kids' retirement, or your kids' education, whatever those things are for you, having an emergency fund that is going to float you for 3 months. If that will make you sleep better at night, have that as a financial goal so that we can work that into your budget. So set some clear goals. Understand your income. And I know that can be a little bit challenging for business owners because our income is not consistent, right? We might have a really great month, and then we might have a couple months that suck, and then we have better month, that kind of thing. So what I suggest for business owners that have income that's kind of up and down is that you get a baseline and work your budget from that baseline. So if you've been in business for a couple of years, you should have some idea of what your consistent income is and work within that budget. So when you have a really great month, you have a little surplus there so that you can compensate for the months that aren't so great. And I know that is easier said than done when you really do have income that fluctuates up and down, but you do have to come to some sort of a baseline for that spending so that you can normalize that and be able to be consistent and comfortable. Whoops, sorry about that. I thought this was off. Well, dang, it actually was. Okay, that was weird. My ringer was actually off. Why that rang, I don't know. But anyway, so understand your income. And the next thing is create a plan, right? Pay yourself off the top. I know we've all heard that, right? But easier said than done. So whatever it is that you've decided that you're saving, pay yourself first with that. Execute the plan. I can't tell you how many times I've seen people that have a budget on paper that they wrote a year ago and they've never implemented it. So take the first step and actually work your plan. And understand that it's not going to be perfect when you start, but start somewhere and then check in on it periodically. I recommend that you rework and look at, tweak, refine your budget at least once a month. I know for me, I have a baseline budget that I then review every single month. And I'm actually going to show you the template that I use. And if you're interested in it, I'd be happy to send it to you. So kind of a rule of thumb, and you may have heard this in budgeting: 50% on needs, 30% on wants, 20% on savings. Now, I will say, if you are 55 years old and you haven't started saving for retirement, 20% on savings is not going to work for you. So this is a, kind of a baseline if you're not sure kind of how to work those numbers. And particularly for business owners, again, where your income fluctuates, sometimes setting a specific dollar amount doesn't really work well for us. Having a percentage sometimes will work a little bit better. So regardless of whether it's a great month or maybe a not so great month, you can identify how you will allocate your budget based on percentages. So high tech versus low tech. What do you think? What's better? What are you saying, Becca?
I think probably whatever works best for you or what you're going to use, but low probably works best, I'd say.
Low works best. Anybody else? Is there anybody who actually feels like they're really successful with their budget right now? Just share whether you have a high tech solution or a low tech solution if you're someone who is doing that.
I like Excel. It's just so nice to be able to see everything at once.
I put everything on a spreadsheet. Again, for personal budget, I put everything on a spreadsheet. I don't know if that's kind of medium tech. I wouldn't necessarily call that high tech, but everything goes on a spreadsheet. So I do like to just be able to see it.
Got it. I love it. Yeah, I mean, and I don't think there's a right or wrong answer. I agree with Becca. Whatever you're going to use, whatever works for you. So if it's a yellow pad and that's what works for you, or graph paper and that's what works for you, if it's a spreadsheet, if it's an app, whatever you're actually going to use is what works, you know, is what's going to be best. Any of them can help you track and manage your budget. It's just, what are you going to commit to using? So I think it was Amy who mentioned envelope systems, right? And if you're not familiar with how that works, it doesn't work as well during COVID, I will say that, because there are places that don't accept cash. But this is another thing that I actually implemented into my budget at some point, long time ago, and it really worked for me. Now, having those little envelopes that you had to actually open, that didn't actually work for me. I created tabs in my wallet, right, that I would actually take out in cash what I was going to spend. Now, the one thing I would not do it for was gas, just because I was too lazy to go in and pay for it. I needed to be able to pay at the pump, but for the most part, like things like groceries, right? I decided how much I was going to spend that month on groceries. I took out that amount in cash. It went in the tab behind groceries. And honest to goodness, when it was over, I actually only had 1 month where I ran out of grocery money. And I was so committed to this envelope system that I just went to the freezer and the pantry, and guess what? We did not starve. We did okay. So if you're not somebody who could stomach, you know, that whole writing it down in the notebook, using an envelope system when we're able to use cash again can really help you get a handle on your spending. If you decide $100 this month is what we're going to spend on entertainment, like I remember doing that when my kids were younger, I had a budget for entertainment. So if the kids came in and said, "Mom, can we go skating?" If I looked in the entertainment envelope or behind the tab and there was money, yes, we can go skating. If there wasn't any, it was probably going to be a Netflix night, right? And they learned to follow that. Like "Mom, do we have any entertainment money?" Like they understood that there was a finite amount and that was what we were going to spend. And so it also started to help train my children and teach them about not spending what you don't have. So that, I mean, now I don't do that so much anymore because once the habit was created, I didn't have to do that. But the visual, you know, having that money there and knowing whether I had a budget for it or not really helped. So I'm with Michael. Michael, you and I think exactly alike. I call the spreadsheet medium tech also. And I'll share with you the spreadsheet that I use because there are a couple points I want to make about the spreadsheet. So let me see if I can do a second share and actually just show you that spreadsheet. I think that'll work. Okay, cool. You guys can hopefully see that. Yes, the spreadsheet, you're actually seeing it. So here are a couple of things that, that I do. I actually have a distribution column in my spreadsheet that says whether it goes into my pay account, which is the account I pay my bills from, whether it goes into a hold account. And I want to talk about that for a second, because oftentimes when people are budgeting, they think about only those fixed expenses. You know, I've got to pay the electricity, I've got to pay the vendors, I've got to pay whatever those fixed expenses are. And they don't necessarily think about the things that don't come around every single month. Like, hey, we just paid personal property taxes and we all have to do that in Virginia. Why does that come as a surprise for people? So if your personal property taxes are $1,200 a year, if you were to set aside $100 a month, every single month, and put it in the hold account, earmarked for personal property taxes, when that comes around next year, boom, that money is there. And you've actually budgeted for that throughout the year. Hey, Christmas is another one that causes people to go into debt. So if you know you spend, you know, $2,400 every year on Christmas, that's $200 a month. If you were to set that aside, it's kind of like the old Christmas club, right? But if you set that aside in the hold account, then when Christmas comes around or the pre-Christmas sales, like didn't we just have the Amazon whatever day, like you're in a position to take advantage of all that stuff because it's already there. It's already in your budget. I used to do that for my kids' summer because summertime was more expensive than childcare during the year. And I would set aside, you know, like the average for the year so that when it was time to sign up for camps, it didn't upset my regular budget. It was already there. Same thing, Becca, for saving for for your emergency fund. You know, factor that into your monthly budget, that you're setting that money aside until you reach, you know, whatever it is for you, 3 months, 6 months, whatever makes you comfortable. And then you can take that money and allocate it somewhere else, pay off, you know, all of those things, that balance between paying off the debt and saving for that emergency fund, so that, you know, when the bump in the road happens, you're not having to go to credit and things like that. The other thing that I think a lot of people miss when they're budgeting are things like car repairs, home repairs, things like that. We know if we drive a car that we're going to have certain maintenance and repair expenses. We may not know exactly what they're going to be every single time we have an issue, but if on average it cost you $1,200 last year, set aside $100 a month for car repairs, right? So that as much of your budget or as much of your finances can be on autopilot as possible. I heard Ralph say that. As much of this as you can automate or put on autopilot, you know what that does? It frees up brain space to be creative, to focus on your business, to grow things, as opposed to stress over stuff that you could actually put on autopilot. So those are some other great advantages. So what the spreadsheet actually does is if you identify envelope for certain things or pay account, it tallies it all up at the bottom, so that I know exactly how much money I need to move into my pay account. I know how much money I need to take out in cash to put in my envelopes. And I know exactly how much money goes into my hold account. And I actually keep a separate tab in this spreadsheet that identifies what the money in the hold account is allocated for. So it's just a way of doing it. It's one way of doing it, not the way, but it's a way. So if you like medium tech, this might be something that would help you. I also want to just share a few of the most popular, whoops, I need to change my share back to this. Give me a sec. All right. So let me share just a few of the most common budgeting apps. So if you like the, you know, more high-tech thing, Mint.com is one that I like a lot. So if you are somebody who swipes and if you use a lot of different cards, Mint.com will actually aggregate those together and you can categorize. So if you use your Navy Federal card sometimes and sometimes you use your Chase card and it's all at Starbucks or, you know, whatever, it will aggregate that together and it will tell you, you know, how much you spent on dining out across all of those accounts. So it really helps you to see where your spending is. So if you're not going to write it all down, and Mint will go back as far as your bank does. So if you were to start Mint.com today, it will actually take that information and it'll go back as far as your bank allows. YNAB, you need a budget. Now this one does cost something. But you know, that one is pretty good also. Pocket Guard, Clarity Money, Good Budget, Personal Capital. Some of them are free, like Mint.com. Some of them cost a little. I think YNAB is like $12 a month or something like that, a little cheaper if you pay by the year. But for those amounts of money, if doing an app like this will cause you to stay on a budget, I promise you, you will come out better by doing it. So this is the part where I get to show you some of the rewards, just to give you an idea of what some of the cost savings are. I know we've done this exercise a couple times at Wine, Women, and Wealth, where people actually identified places where they felt like they could cut back. And even a little bit makes a huge difference. So let me share this actual spreadsheet, and we'll run a couple of numbers just to give you an idea of some of that. So this shows a $200 a month savings at 7%, and we could lower the percentage, you know, to make it. What did I do? Ooh, what did I do to my spreadsheet? Okay, I don't know what I did. Oh, I do know what I did. I switched it. Okay. Are you all actually seeing the movement of the spreadsheet? No? You're just seeing the static one?
Yeah, we're just seeing the 7%.
Okay, let me try this one more time. Okay, are you seeing 30,000, 22%, which we would not have?
Yeah. Now it's
Are you seeing 7%? Yeah. Okay, good. All right, let me switch it to what I actually want to show. Why is this messing up? Okay, so if our present value is 0, oh, here we go. All right, so if we had $200 a month, right, starting at nothing, if we had $200 savings, right, and we did that for 20 years at 5% interest, so it's not $200. And I know for me, family of 4, we used to go out to dinner like 2 or 3 days a week. So you do the math on that. So if I just shaved off a couple of those, right, we could easily save $200 a month. At over 20 years, it's not a couple of dinners, it's $82,000. So do I want a couple of dinners out a month, or do I want an extra $82,000 in my travel budget when I retire? Right? So when I did the Starbucks coffee thing and I really thought about what we were spending, I was spending about, I was spending probably $15 a week, right? So that's $60 a month. My husband was probably spending, about $40 a month. So collectively on coffee, we were spending $100 a month. Now, really, realistically, over 20 years, we could probably average a little better than 6% on that money. Yeah. Do I want coffee 5 days a week, or do I want an extra $46,000, right? I remember doing this with a younger person who had about 40 years left to save. And she was spending about $150 on nonsense, right? Stuff that she recognized she didn't even really want, right? Do you really want that crap? Or do you want an extra $300,000? And so when you put it in perspective like that, and you really see the actual cost of some of the silly stuff you're doing, man, it makes a big difference down the road, because we don't think about that $2, $3 Starbucks, or that, that $20 dinner that we go out to, $20 times 4 or 25 times 4 for me, $100 every time we go. Yeah, it matters. It really matters. So I'm not saying never go out to eat, because we still go out to eat. We just don't go out to eat 3 nights a week. Okay. If we cut out just 1 a week and went to 2 a week, that was $400 a month that we were saving. So just wanted to give you a little bit more incentive, if you didn't have enough, to actually make an attempt at doing a budget. So as I'm wrapping up, I will say, if I can get back to my, okay, that is showing me the right thing. Muhammad Ali, another one of my favorites. He said, I hated every minute of training, but he said, don't quit, suffer now, and live the rest of your life as a champion. So sometimes we have to experience just a little bit of pain, right, in order to have the long-term gain. I want to just quickly share some upcoming events. We dig into fundamentals and principles at Money 101. Got one coming up October 26th, which is a Monday evening, and then October 31st, which is Halloween, but it's early in the day. It's at 12:30, that's Saturday. And then for the ladies, Wine, Women, and Wealth. Sometimes we have subjects like this. You've just experienced like the kind of thing that we do at Wine, Women, and Wealth. Okay, so that is, I took some of this from one of a Wine, Women, and Wealth presentations. So Tuesday, October 20th at 7:30. So that is tonight. One of my colleagues is actually doing that one. And then I'll be doing one Friday, November 20th. So, and the last thing I will wrap up with is, it is not the blowing of the wind, but the set of the sail that determines your destination. And Jim Rohn goes on to say, the same wind blows on us all. So we all have adversity, we all have challenges, but how we set our sail, how we set our budget actually will help determine where we end up. So thank you.